So, Kanisha, I'm so excited to be here with you today. We met a couple days ago, but I knew instantly that we just connected on so many different levels. Every topic that comes up, we are talking for hours about it, and I feel like we can continue talking for hours about it. You just have such an amazing and unique story, and I think a lot of people, including myself, can really look up to you and what you do. And I'm not going to give it away. So I just wanted you to briefly introduce yourself, who you are, what you're passionate about, and what you're currently doing today.
Okay, so I'm Kanisha Warren. I'm an actress and an entrepreneur. What I do in, my business ultimately is real estate, mortgages, and insurance. I just recently got into acting about a year, and
Mhm.
that is just a newfound love and passion of mine. I have four beautiful kids, 2015. Look, I got to think about it. So 2015, 11, and 5.
Wow. So before you continue, how do you find time to do all of that?
I actually had a meltdown today. Really
Mm.
did. I was like, how am I going to conquer what my visions are? And not to say that my kids are a burden or anything like that, but they exist in my
Mm.
space to have to navigate. And yeah, I was like, how do you be great at all of this?
Mm.
Any extra things that I have to put on my plate just kind of like spins me out of control because I don't want my kids at home all
Yeah.
day, and it's an interesting balance, but
Wow. I
I
mean,
take
that's
a stab at it every day.
that's an honest truth. And what got you through the meltdown today?
Looking at my kids when I brought them to the park,
Mm.
watching them in their element, and
Mm.
you just have to give yourself more grace. And honestly, I'm starting to really feel what that actually means because a lot of my girlfriends was beating me down with it, especially with
Mm.
my recent divorce. And I'm like, Grace, I am. What are you saying? Like, you keep saying that to me. But now I'm starting to really understand what that means. And just looking at them was like,
It was worth it.
damn.
Wow, that hit me really deep because I talk a lot about offering ourselves grace because we can't possibly do it all. And to hear you say that is like, I mean, I can only imagine what your world is like, but you have already come to the conclusion of like, I need to offer myself grace. And what do you have like any other practices that you do to help offer yourself grace or to get through those tough moments?
I mean, it just depends on what it is because I'm really still suffering through a lot of it because I'm newly divorced, right? So
Yeah.
there's a parent that left, there's an income that left. And then now, on top of my businesses, I've added a newfound career in acting. So
Mhm.
I honestly am truly in the thick of it. But one thing I can say that I've been doing more so is truly trying to stay centered and listening to
Yeah.
my body better.
Yeah.
And if I don't want to do it, then don't do it. And don't beat yourself up because you decided not to do a particular thing today. Journaling has been really good because
Mhm.
I'm big on sourcing the pain.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do it this way?
Yeah.
What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then once I can kind of get clarity on sourcing truly my intentions for a situation, then I'm like, okay, let it go. You really don't have to do it this way because your intentions, it's not really centered. You're doing it for maybe
Exactly.
ego, or you're just doing too much in general.
So were you always this way, or I want to get
Yeah.
into who you were before this Kanisha that we have in front of us. Let's go to the version of you before the shift.
Well, I've had two shifts.
Mm.
My first shift was in 2016 when I was just like, life, it has to be more than life. Prior
Mm.
to that, I was a young girl that, come from a family where you want to get your college degree in your corner office.
Yeah.
I played basketball and ended up getting pregnant my first year and
Mm.
went right into the role of motherhood and being a wife. So from that, I just kind of lost my identity. And it was wrapped up in my family and basketball. And once basketball left, it was just like, well, who are you now? So in 2016, we just bought our house. And yeah, 2015 or 16. We had just bought our house. I was working at the bank. I was doing fairly well financially. But the routine of that 9 to 6 and then coming home and having to take care of kids and look at homework folders, I was like, it has to be more to life than this. Plus, I don't feel like I'm fully accessible to my children. So that's when entrepreneurship started because I wanted to be more accessible to them. That's when I got into real estate. Because just seeing how things work when I bought my house, and that's when I was like, you know what? I'm more than just this. I have a voice because, like I said before, it was just a corner office and a college degree. And I'm like, well, who are you outside of basketball? I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to be, I couldn't sing, like some of the most obvious things that people choose. It wasn't me. And so I discovered I had a voice.
Mm,
And so that was my first shift. My
mm,
second shift was when I got divorced from my 21-year relationship.
mm.
And so being jolted into this particular phase of my life without real warning left me to look at me because the person I was pointing fingers at was no longer there.
Yeah.
So it forced me to look at myself. It forced me to remember myself. And I am a pretty resilient person. I'm an ex college athlete, so I'm competitive. So I'm like, this can't beat or defeat you.
Mm.
So yeah, I just started to look inward, look at the shadow work, and here I am.
Wow. Oh man, I have to sit in that for a little bit because that's the two powerful stories that you just shared. And you mentioned like that feeling of there has to be more to life than this. What would you say to other mothers who are feeling that way? What advice would you give them to try to feed more into that feeling of like there has to be more to this? Because some people will just sit in it forever and.
Um, so that is a very sensitive topic for me that I'm truly fleshing through because part
Mm,
of it is wrapped in rebellion for me that
mm,
I'm still trying to navigate through. But ultimately, what I've discovered as a wife, as a mother, we really truly have to focus on ourselves and
mhm.
not feel guilty about taking and putting yourself first because if you focus on you, other people will. When you're not focusing on you, other people won't.
Yes.
And you will be so resentful
Yes.
if because you're pouring and doing all of these things for your kids, your husband, and they don't know the invisible labor. They don't realize what you're doing on the back end. And whenever you're not getting what you put in return, it makes you very resentful. So
Yeah.
I really caution women in thinking that that's parenting is by doing everything for everybody and forgetting you, and doing everything for your husband and forgetting you because they forgot you too. They'll
Mm,
forget you too.
yeah.
So yeah, that would be my advice to truly focus on you and don't feel guilty about it because kids grow up and they leave anyway, you know?
Mm.
And what kind of example would we be if we don't even show our girls and our sons, what it really means to focus on yourself and love you first?
Self-love is everything. I always just like to say that like the only way to heal other people is to heal yourself. The only way to love others is to love yourself. I think a lot of people try to find that love externally or they try to heal other people thinking that it's going to help them. But in reality, when you start with you, you start to see like everything is a reflection of how you're feeling internally.
That's really good. And just to kind of, go off of what you said,
Mhm.
a lot of my childhood trauma shaped who I am as an adult and how I love.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
my abandonment issues, my people pleasing, all of that kind of just manifested in me as a young adult, especially in my previous relationship. And so that's why I say with people, you really got to focus on yourself. People really think that by getting something from someone else is really going to fill your void, and it really doesn't.
Mhm.
I had discovered at the latter part of my marriage, it was like my abandonment issues were my issues, but I'm looking for you to feel that for me. You fix you and it'll fix me. And that's not the case. It's not their responsibility. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I want to go a little bit deeper into the healing work that you did, especially regarding trauma, the abandonment issues. When you became aware that that was the issue, what did you start to do in return?
Well, for me, I kind of started beating myself up because I'm like, now that you know that this was part of the catalyst to the
Mm,
demise in your relationship, I started to beat myself up. I started to resent my family,
Mm.
because I felt like I was created in the soil of this, and I'm perpetuating these same cycles that I was trying to get away from. So I went through a phase of rebellion. Then it was like, okay, so no, you have to take accountability because it doesn't matter whoever gave it to you. It doesn't matter. You have it. Now, how do we get rid of it? So it got to the point where I was like, again, that shadow work, really being honest about my feelings about certain things. I got father issues, I got mother issues, and just sourcing particular things that happen in my life and making peace with it. But
Yeah.
also journaling was
Yeah.
big for me. And it was like, how people can overuse certain words like manifestation
Yeah.
and journal and shadow work and all of these things. But I started to really tap into what those things meant because I'm like, you're drowning. It was times I didn't even want to get out of bed as a result of
Mhm.
this divorce. And I had kids watching me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the journaling was really big. I would ask myself questions and then do active writing right after, and I would source a lot of the reasons why I was
Mhm.
resentful, why, I had issues with abandonment. So
Mhm.
that's what I was doing.
Wow. Journaling is one of my favorite modalities, one of my favorite healing modalities. And it's like every time I talk to someone and I can tell they're hurting, or if I'm talking to someone and they're trying to figure out what is my secret, I'm like, listen, I journal all day. Whenever I feel any sort of emotion, I'm writing it down and I'm working through it because as a child, I didn't have a voice. I wasn't able to speak to anyone about how I was feeling. And so writing, I do believe, was a gift, one of my gifts, right? But it came out of necessity because I couldn't speak to anyone. And I went through a phase where I found out, one of my parents was reading my journals, and so I stopped writing. And that's when I felt most disconnected from source and most disconnected from myself was when I stopped writing, but it was from a trauma. And now I'm finding that it is now the solution to me dealing with my trauma and dealing with emotions. And so I preach to anyone that I can, anyone that will listen, that journaling is a lifesaver, quite literally. And it's just the way that we're not supposed to suppress our emotions. We're supposed to express them. And it's a form of expression. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's an option for them. That's, sometimes as good as therapy, but you should always still go to therapy. It's just as good and it will allow you to see what you need to work on continuously. I don't know if you do this, but do you tend to go back in your journal and read things from your previous self, or do you just write and let it be what it is? What is
Uh,
that process like for you?
One thing about me is I don't know, I'm just probably chaotic sometimes in my mind. I have like books everywhere, like
Yeah.
journals
Mhm.
everywhere. So honestly, and I forgot a part, what I had been doing also was blogging.
I
Um
love that.
yeah, because it was just giving me an opportunity to express myself visually. But
Mhm.
no, to answer your question, no, I hadn't went back.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I mean, like I said, it's a means for us to get it out. And then once it's out, we don't have to worry about it being inside and building up into whatever stagnancy or toxins or dis-ease that a lot of people tend to live with because they're suppressing so much. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I kind of recommend that, not kind of, I'd highly recommend it for wives and mothers,
Yes.
um, because, especially from a wife standpoint,
Mhm.
there are times where you may not need to address a certain thing at a particular time, right?
Right.
Because of emotions, one, and it may
Yes.
not come out the best. Uh,
Right.
but a lot of times we just want to be heard. And
Yeah.
depending on your partner, mine was very dismissive. He hated conflict. So bringing anything to him was pushed back in my face. And then it caused that abandonment issues, it caused rejection issues, and all of those kind of things. So, depending on the partner that you chose, could determine whether or not this is most effective. But I would say initially, whatever issue that you have, write it out. Give yourself some time, think about it, manifest on it. Because sometimes when you initially jolt it out of you and go back, sometimes you don't even really need to say it.
Hmm.
No, sometimes you
Yeah.
just need to leave it to the universe. Um,
Yeah.
pray about it
Yeah.
and let the universe and let God do what it do.
Hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
I just want to
Absolutely.
make sure that whoever's watching, especially mothers and mothers and wives, that you understand that that is a powerful tool, even navigating through your marriage.
I love that. And going deeper into the family dynamic, how has your healing changed your relationship with your kids, if at all?
Girl, oh my God. That will cause me to act like onions is in the room. Wow.
Take your time.
Yeah. What this has done for me when it comes to my children is bring us so much closer. I've had such a newfound love and respect for my children. Um, I've leaned on them, they've leaned on me, and I've just been so proud even to see what I've raised so far, their response, even to my moments where I just couldn't do, and how they, like I said, supported me. But I'm so happy I get to raise them. I
Mm,
was feeling so resentful that the other parent can just escape.
yeah.
He created a choice whether he wanted to be there or not, but I didn't have one.
Mm,
And I was really resentful for that. But then I was like, wait, he's the one that's missing out, not you.
yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it put things in perspective and I hug on them. We laugh.
Mm.
I mean, I think it was actually a gift.
Yes, no, absolutely. It was a blessing. Wow. So kind of what we were talking about off camera about the manifestation, right? Where when we tend to start removing some of these blockages, and these blockages in this instance being the self-healing and removing or working through the trauma and the journaling and the awareness, you let more love in. And so you're able to see that like they're a reflection of unconditional love towards you. So you're able to be that for them now. And like nothing else, I'm gonna get like teary-eyed too. Nothing else stands in the way, but it's so beautiful to hear that story because like I wish this for everyone. Like I wish that everyone gets a chance to experience like this openness of love because that's really why we're all here, you know?
Made me more patient. Actually made me be more in the moment. It's actually making me more attentive. And yeah, I can't explain any further besides just overwhelming love and gratitude that I have that I just get to have these kids.
Mm,
They are
mm,
mine. I mean, they're not, they're my kids, but how some people like they're not yours. Nobody is really yours. But
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, like they're
It's
my
like you said, like I get to experience them, and that is a gift in itself.
my
Like,
20-year-old, helping her navigate through her young
mhm.
womanhood and being able to see just reflections of me in her,
Mm,
and I don't know, it's just a beautiful thing when you really think about your children being a gift
yes.
and that you get to raise them, you get to love on them, you get to help them navigate. It's like no other.
I love that. And so, with your 20-year-old is your eldest, right? And she's probably seen you through all your seasons.
Yes.
What would you say, how would you say that relationship has changed for the better as you are going through your healing journey?
It's made me, well, as I mentioned before, I've gotten more patient with my kids.
Mhm.
But how has it changed her and our relationship? I would say patience is a big thing.
Mm,
One thing with especially your firstborn daughter or firstborn child in general, you're trying to parent your children based off how you weren't parented. And,
right.
having to shift that into parenting based off their needs was a huge shift for me. And so that's where I'm at, parenting her according to what she needs from me,
Mm,
taking my ego out because she is, different than the woman that I'm used to.
yeah, yeah,
She's different than my mother. She's different
yeah.
than me. She's, even a bit different than my grandmother, but in some similarities, I would say. But I had to adjust to that, you know?
Mm.
They're humans.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So we talked about your breaking point. We talked about what you were like before your breaking point and what you're like in the middle of healing from that. What would you say are the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout all of this?
Nobody's really coming for you is really real. I remember journaling in my notebook that No, nobody cares, Kanisha.
Mm,
Nobody really cares. You can be jumping. You're jumping up and down in a padded room, and nobody's listening.
mm,
Um, and it was more or less not so much my friends or family. It was me directing that energy to my ex to try to get him to soften in certain areas where I needed him, in this transition. And yeah, nobody's coming for you. You have to come for
mhm,
you. You can't expect anything from anybody.
mm,
Um, another big one that I'm hopefully carrying in a positive way and not a way that is not rebellious, but trying to find the word resentful.
mhm.
You can't really trust anybody.
Yeah.
You can't really extend 100% of trust in a human because humans do disappoint you and you have to always protect yourself. My biggest takeaway and that I'm gonna probably say for the rest of my life, and I'm definitely telling my women, my girls, um, as a wife, you need a savings. You can't put so much emphasis on a person to not betray you because that's not true. Everybody is capable of doing something you thought they would never be capable of.
Right.
So don't be so naive and so trusting and thinking that this person wouldn't be something that they really can. So, yeah, truly protect you women
Mm,
because for me, at least my experience or the things that I've witnessed, we are the bottom of the totem pole. And sometimes we put ourselves there too because we're nurturers, we're loving, we want to give
mhm,
back, we're people pleasers, we just operate from such a love standpoint that
yeah.
we're not putting that self love back in us. And that is what has to change.
Exactly. And that is goes back to the generational traumas of our mothers having to do that and our grandmothers having to do that. I think there was a certain point in all of our lineages where the woman became powerless. And we've always been so powerful. And I think, we're 3 or 4 generations removed from that, and we're trying to find our way back. We're trying to climb back up the ladders because I truly believe that there was a point in time when you and I were the most powerful beings on this planet. Not to say that anyone else isn't, but the level of power that we feel and we believe we have right now is far less than what I believe it was in the past before we were broken down, before we were knocked down.
And that's one thing that I want to do, and I still have yet done it, but I keep speaking it because it will happen one day. I want to
Mhm.
look at the
Done.
of Black people. I
Mm,
want to understand because all of that mindset, we're paying it forward to our children,
yeah.
our daughters, our sons. So, and now as you're seeing, things are shifting. People are like, no, I'm not taking the status quo. I'm dismantling these traditions. I don't want to do it like that no more because that doesn't feel good. And I see it didn't work out for you either.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that's kind of why I feel like for me, for sure, I do accept the challenge of breaking these generational curses because I'm hyper aware, I'm highly accountable, I'm super transparent, and I want to get it right.
And you're more than capable.
And I'm more than capable. And
Mm,
I'm honest with myself. And, like I tell my daughter, nobody can beat you when you're honest with yourself. Nobody can beat your truth when you're honest about it. But what they can beat you with is your secrets that you try to hide. So
mm,
let's be honest with what insecurities you have, your vulnerabilities that you have. Be honest. Because to me, vulnerability is strength, it's power.
yeah.
So I think all of this has really brought me home to self. And
Mm,
that's another trigger for me. I'm so thankful to be back to
mm,
me
mm.
because I lost myself in so many different phases of my life trying to love somebody so hard or so much to compensate the difference of what they weren't giving me. I thought if I give it to you this way, then you'll give it back to me, and they don't. I have to give it to me.
Exactly. Oof. And, remembering who we are, coming back to self, all of this, what I like to say is like remembering the light within, because we're all born with it. We all have it. And when we come into this world, certain things kind of cloud that light. And we go through even more things to dim the light as well. And we sometimes have to climb out of it and like remove the fogginess, remove the darkness in order to allow the light to shine. So, my question to you is, what does life look like now for you now that you are shining your light?
It just feels lighter. It
Mhm.
feels fulfilling. It feels hopeful. We just recently started a podcast called Steady Mom and Podcast where we are pouring into women, we're pouring into mothers. I just feel like it's just giving me an opportunity to take this wealth of knowledge, this wealth of experience, and pay it forward for others so they can navigate and avoid some of the pitfalls that I had. I'm really passionate about that. Like I took the scenic route to success and I want people to get there quicker.
You're speaking from your experience, and there's no better teacher than experience. So,
I got a master's degree, almost a PhD. I probably got a PhD this year.
oh my goodness, I love that. Well, Kanisha, this has been so beautiful. I'm trying not to tear up myself, and there's so many more topics that I want to dive deeper into, probably on the next couple of episodes. But I want you to share any final thoughts, and then we also want to know where we can find you. What are you doing? Like, how can people reach out to you?
So, last takeaways, final thoughts. Pretty much, I just want people's takeaways to be for me is that childhood trauma truly shapes who you are as an adult. It shapes your parenting, it shapes your relationships. So, those things really need to be addressed. You have to really make sure that you are not giving so much emphasis on people's responsibility for your healing because they're not coming for you at all. They've moved on. And it's your work. It doesn't matter who did it to you, it's your new possession and you need to work through it. Um, as far as where to find me, I'm on all social media platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. So my handler is Kanisha underscore act underscore two, and that's on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. Um, and then we have Steady Mom and Podcast on Yellow Fox Media on YouTube, where we are shooting actually episode 3 currently because it's a new podcast. But number 1 is awesome. Number 2 is awesome. It's talking about that childhood trauma I'm telling you about. We had Dr. Ayo on there, and she's a psychiatrist diving in deep with that. So you don't want to miss these episodes. But yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me.
Oh, awesome. And I'll be sure wherever I share this to also share your information because I think a lot of people need to hear what you're sharing. I know it's already helped me so much. So I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I love you, girl. You're so awesome.